Okay, my friends, welcome to another day in the Foods Lab. Today we are going to be doing a little bit of two things. Number one, we're going to be learning about a new word, a new cooking term called cream. And it might mean something different than what you think it means. But we're gonna do this today, creaming some ingredients. We'll find out what they are. And then we're also going to, of course, be making these chocolate chip oatmeal cookies. I've given you on your assignment the original amounts here in the grayed out area. And you are going to half this recipe, and you will put the amounts that you'll actually measure down here in this left-hand column. If you do your math correctly, your cookies will turn out perfect. If you don't do your math correctly, I don't know what you're gonna end up with. So good luck to you. Previous to this demonstration, I have washed my hands for 20 seconds. I have gone ahead and read over the recipe. It makes perfect sense to me. I've gathered all of my ingredients, and in this case, I've pre-measured them because I'm not telling you what the right amounts are, but I'm doing the amounts that you should be doing, so your product's gonna end up looking like my product. I've measured all of those ingredients, got them out, and of course I've also assembled the pieces of equipment that I need to use. I have also done step number one, which is to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Not only have I preheated it to 350 degrees, but before I started the oven, I made sure that the rack was in the center of the oven. If your rack is too high up, then the tops of your cookies are going to overcook, are going to overcook, and the bottoms will be doughy. If the rack is lower than halfway down, the bottoms are going to overcook and turn brown and crunchy, and the tops might still be gooey and you won't even know they're done. So we'll go forward with this recipe because I preheated that oven with a rack in the middle. All right, my first step past taking and preheating the oven is to take my cookie sheet, and I have my choice whether I want to grease it, and I could do that with a non-stick cooking spray or a little bit of shortening on some waxed paper and spread it, or I can use a piece of parchment paper. Parchment paper is a special paper. It looks like wax paper, but it is not wax paper. Wax paper has wax on it. What happens when you get wax hot, like in a 350 degree oven? Well, my friends, it will melt and it'll make a mess. So no wax paper. Parchment paper we use here at school, and I buy oodles of them, all in this pre-cut amount. This is a piece of paper that has had a non-stick finish applied to it that will not melt in the oven. You'll pick this up from me. You will not use wax paper, and by the way, don't cook on your tray. Make sure it's your cookie sheet. The parchment paper makes the cookies easy to release, and it also helps us on cleanup here at school. So that is what I've done to prepare my pan. Sometimes that's all they say is prepare your pan. I'm going to place this to the side and get it out of the way. Then my instructions tell me in a small mixing bowl, this is my smallest mixing bowl, I'm going to stir together 4 ingredients. Only 4 ingredients. It's the top 4 ingredients. Do not put anything but the flour, step number 3, the flour, that's this right here that I've measured correctly. I'm going to put in the oatmeal, and this is a quick oatmeal. There are basically 3 different types of oatmeal. One of them is quick or instant, and that's when the oats have been shaved really, really fine. There's an old-fashioned oat that's cut just a little bit thicker, so it's a little bit more chewy. And then there is a steel cut, which is even a bigger slice out of the oat grain. You can use any of them, but it will affect what your product is like. So I'm putting in these quick oats as my second thing. I'm going to put in cocoa, and cocoa comes by many different names, but this is not sweet. It's just the plain chocolate, very strong. I'm going to go ahead and pop that in there, and then the last thing I've got is baking soda. Make sure you get baking soda, not the baking powder. Just a little tiny bit. I'm going to make sure that all gets in there, and then I'm going to place these back, and my dishwasher can wash them. I'm going to stir these, and of course I don't need to use an electric mixer on this for a couple of reasons. One is because it'll end up with a big poof of powder in my face, and the second reason why is that I will totally demolish those oats they're already very thin cut. This stirring that I'm doing is a very gentle stir, and I want to keep those oats as whole as possible, and I want to combine them so I don't have to worry about combining these 4 ingredients later once they get in with the liquids. All right, so once I've gone ahead and done this, this is again called a fold in, the type of stirring that I'm doing. I'm just going around and flipping it upside down. Okay, done with this, I'm going to place this to the side, and step number 4 says, in the medium-sized bowl, I'm going to put your butter. Butter has to be at room temperature. It has to be nice and soft. If it's not, you cannot do the step called creaming later down that they're asking you to do. I've let this butter sit out at room temperature for probably 3 hours. I can soften it in the microwave, but I have to be really careful. If I get my butter too melted, it'll affect my temperature or my texture of my cookie. If it's still too cold, then it doesn't cream very well. So this is at room temperature. I've just let it sit out. It's fine. It can sit out for several hours. Bacteria will not grow in it. All right, so I'm done with that. Place it to a side. Then it says I'm going to add the sugar that I have pre-measured in here, and it also says I'm going to take and add my brown sugar. How do you measure brown sugar? I hope you remember it. Oh dear, this has been sitting out for just a little bit dry. I'm going to crack this up a touch. Hopefully that will help me out okay when I go to use my electric mixer, because now I'm going to cream. Creaming is used, it's a term that is used when you have a solid fat like butter or margarine or shortening, and you have a sugar. And the whole process of doing this is to do 2-fold things. Number 1, combine the ingredients completely well, and that will actually start breaking down the sugar. And the second thing is to incorporate a little bit of air. So your electric mixers found in your kitchens, handheld ones, the first thing you're going to do is you are going to put your beaters in here. I suggest you do that before you plug it in. I've sadly had some people put their beaters in and turn their mixer on while they're putting them in, and especially if people have long hair or loose ties on their clothing, it gets stuck in here, and pretty soon, zip, 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 they are all sucked into their electric mixer. So I've got my electric mixer put together. I'm double checking that it is off before I go ahead and plug it in. And then I will go ahead and take my electric mixer before I turn it on. You don't turn it on, then put it in. You put it in, then turn it on. And we're gonna go ahead and mix this for about a minute or 2. So I'm gonna just go ahead and stop talking while I do this. You can watch, but you're not gonna hear me very well. So here we go. And I'm just trying to get these combined at the very beginning. And I'm gonna see that that butter is nice and soft. We'll want to go in there, all okay. And you can see it's kind of mixed. I'm having problems with my brown sugar because I let it sit out without covering it while I was getting things ready. Oh, good luck that I'm going to be able to beat those down. So I've got a low speed now. Everything's combined. I'm going to go ahead and pick up the speed a little bit. At this point, I'm taking and working in the air and breaking down the sugar. Do it for at least a minute. I'm done, and then step number 8, it says to go ahead and scrape down the sides and the bottom with the flexible spatula. And there's always a little spot that doesn't get included, so we're trying to scrape that all together. And if this were just white sugar in with my butter, you would see it had gone from a darker yellow, not really dark yellow, but it definitely gets a paler yellow as you cream it and more air comes in. This becomes really nice and soft and light. and then I'm good to go. Now, my friends, just a little bit of a break in the mixing of this all. I'm going to not lick these. Somehow I've got to get this off of my beaters because I'm done with my beaters. When you look at the next part of your instructions, almost they're gonna be all done. Okay, all right, I'm gonna stand corrected. I have one more ingredient to put in. That is my egg. Now, if you are doing the whole recipe, the way that it was written, you would use one whole egg. But we are halving this recipe, and so we have to do half an egg. Now, you could try to give a quick shot with a French knife right in the center and try to get half of it in there, but it's not gonna work. Instead, what we're gonna do is outsmart the egg. We're gonna take that egg, oops, and it looks like I have a little bit of shell in there. Let's give you a little bit of information on shell problems. You don't wanna leave the shell in there. If you go to try to pick it out with your fingers, it's just like, I don't know, it's like it plays games with you. But if you use the shell to pick it up, it's like the shell is attracted to the membrane that's found inside of your egg, and it will pick up that little bit of shell that's left in there. All right, so in a whole egg, there are 3 tablespoons. When I go to beat these together, I'm going to find out, if I were to get my measuring spoon out, that the average egg has average large egg has 3 tablespoons in it. If I go ahead and put this whole entire egg into my mixture, I'll have too much moisture and my cookies will be weird. If I beat it really good, it will become a kind of a homogeneous, easy to measure mixture. If I don't beat it good enough, the egg white's kind of slimy and it's obnoxious. I could beat this with my whisk, and I would if I had a little mini whisk right here, but my big whisk is just too big for this bowl, so I'm using a fork. And I'm just gonna beat this until I see foamy stuff on the very top. That means that I've started to break down that egg white pretty good. So now I'm gonna go ahead and measure this. I'm gonna measure 1.5 tablespoons. Now I don't wanna measure over here. And I don't wanna try to scoop it. It just isn't gonna work because I won't be able to fill up that measuring spoon. So I'm gonna go ahead and put 1.5 tablespoons. Get it all the way full till you're nervous about it. Pop that in there. And here goes my second one. Measuring that all the way full to the point where you're nervous, and toss that. You could save this. I suppose you could make scrambled eggs on another day, but here in class, we're just gonna throw this into the garbage can. It'll be absorbed by any of the other garbage that's in there, like paper towels from your hands. Then we'll go ahead and beat this one more time, getting that all combined. And I'm gonna stop, and I am going to scrape down the sides and the bottom and scrape that off on that flexible spatula, and then let's go back one more time and combine those ingredients. All right, now I'm to the point of taking my beaters out. When I take my beaters out, I've got to get the dough, whatever it happens to be, off of it. And this is the way you're going to do it. I'm going to unplug my mixer. On these mixers, you push in on the blue button right there to eject your beaters, and then you're going to scrape them off. If you wanted to, you could use your fingers if you were at home. Here, and even at home, I don't want that mess all over me. I found that a table knife just fits right in there ever so nicely, and it removes everything from that beater. Scrape the inside and outside, and do the same thing with the second one. Don't try to do this while your beaters are in your electric mixer. That's not going to be very successful. And then we are basically done with getting all of that. It's not quite batter, but it looks like it, or dough. It's not quite there, but it looks like it. The next thing, before we move on with this, I want to talk about your electric mixer. That electric mixer needs to be cleaned. Don't put it away dirty. If you do, you're going to have problems with bacteria. So I'm going to put my washcloth in my hot soapy water. Then I'm going to take and wipe this down. Now it's not plugged in because you know electricity and water don't mix. I'm going to wipe that whole thing off, and then I'm going to wipe the cord off before I turn around and put it away. Before you put it away, will you please wrap the cord around it? And if you keep these mixers clean, this mixer right here, maybe you say, is that brand new, Mrs. Wiscomb? It looks like it. I'm gonna tell you, no, it's about 10 years old. But because we keep it clean, they look new. All right, back to step number 11. It says we're gonna add in some vanilla. Now the vanilla extract is not tasty at all if you take it straight. And if you add too much vanilla in there, it's gonna be ick, ick, ick. So I'm gonna take and measure out my vanilla right now. And I didn't pre-measure it because I was afraid it would evaporate. I don't wanna measure over here because if I get too much vanilla in there, again, it's icky. I'm gonna fill this up over the top of a empty bowl, and I'm very carefully, so full that I'm very nervous about moving, and then immediately put my lid back on. I'm going to, oh my goodness, scrape this. Look at this, I'm getting excited. This can be with your electric mixer. Sorry kids, one more time. Go ahead and get too excited about talking, and I'm not reading instructions. Beat that in there, it's all combined, that's all we need to do. And then we're going to take and finally put this flour mixture in. All right, you could stir either with your flexible spatula or your wooden spoon. At this point, I kind of prefer my wooden spoon. Just easier to work with, it's more strong, of course. And I will pop that mixture in there. And then we're going to just combine these things. And again, I don't want to use my electric mixer at this part because if I do, I'm going to be breaking down those oats. The oats we want to take and stay full. I'm going to stir that in, and I'm kind of doing a fold in, and I'm also, but I'm not super careful with it, and I'm gonna keep stirring this, and pretty soon what you're gonna see is the butter's gonna say, oh what, you're mixing some flour in with me and I'm supposed to absorb it? Well, the answer to that is yes. So you're gonna see a little bit of a color change as the butter gets absorbed into the flour or the flour into the butter, depends on how you look at it. We're just gonna keep mixing that until this mixture comes all together. Once you have this mixture all together and there's no flour or cocoa mixture at the bottom of your bowl. Can you see that's kind of pretty much where I'm at? If I go to move this, let me see if I can get that out of the way. You can see that, oh, it's all there on my spoon, that all the flour's gone. Then we're ready to go ahead and drop the chocolate chips in. What kind of chocolate chips am I putting in? What's in my cupboard actually today. You can put milk chocolate in. You can put semi-sweet, these are semi-sweet miniature ones. You can put white chocolate in. You could, I suppose, even put mint chocolate ones in, whatever happens to be at your grocery store. And how curious are you about what flavors there are? And I'm gonna mix this all together till it is homogeneous, which means that you can't really tell the difference between one part of your dough or batter, this is a drop batter, and the other part, it's almost a soft dough, isn't it? It sure is. Okay, once I feel like I'm all combined, then we're ready to put these on the cookie sheet. Now I want you to keep in mind, if you make these cookies too big, especially those of you here at school, they're gonna take too long to cook, and then you're not gonna get them, and Mrs. Wiscomb will get them on. But if you make them too small, then they're gonna cook too fast. So when you look at your recipe, it's a guideline, 18 cookies. Those students that are here at school, you make sure that you get approximately 18 cookies. It says to drop it by small spoonfuls onto the parchment-lined cookie sheet. I'm taking a scoop, and I'm trying to keep these all about the same size. What size are they? I kind of think they're the size of, maybe bouncy balls. Does that look like a bouncy ball? You know what I'm talking about when I say that, right? I'm gonna take and try to get 6 times 3 is 18. That sounds good. So I'm gonna try to get 6 rows of 18 cookies. You might wanna jog them. I think I'm gonna do that just a little bit. I'm gonna jog them. Can you see how they're kind of just off of each other? Because of course these are going to take and melt down, is that what we can say? Melt down just a little bit and take up a little bit more space. And I'm again trying to keep them all the same size. If you were a professional baker, you'd probably have a cookie scoop, and that cookie scoop you'd fill up the same time. It looks like a miniature ice cream scoop. Maybe some of you have seen those. Looks like I'm forgetting something here. Getting a little bit more drugged off than I want to be. But that's how come cookies from your baker all look exactly the same, is because they've used a cookie scoop. But we're not going to worry about that, mostly because we don't have cookie scoops for you all. But I don't want to get any of them too big. I want to keep them all about the same size. Better to err on the side of too small and add to them than to do them too big and then have to try to go back and take them off. If you got just 15 cookies, I think I'd be okay with that. If you got maybe a little bit more, I don't care if you get more, but listen, you can only put them on one cookie sheet if you're here at school. And see right here, we're coming around the bend, trying to keep them about the same shape. And here's my last one-ish. And let's see, I'm getting just a little bit, getting a little bit close on my side. So I'm gonna just roll these a little bit back out, and then I'm gonna pop them in the oven. I got one little touch left. I don't wanna have any cookie dough, and then of course I don't wanna eat this because why? It's got raw eggs. What is the bacteria that's found perhaps in that raw egg? Did you say salmonella? I hope so. And then we're gonna go ahead and pop these in the oven just as quick as not. Little word for the wise. Number one, the person who puts it in the oven opens the oven door all the way and pulls out the rack, therefore then placing it on the rack before they push the rack in and close the oven door. Then that same person is gonna set the timer. If you say, oh, someone else will do it, they won't. And remember, no cell phones in our kitchens, they're not clean. And it says to bake it for 10 to 12 minutes. What do you set the timer for? Did you say 10, 11, or 12? The answer is 10 minutes. You always bake it for the least amount of time because you can always cook it more. But if you've cooked it for 12 minutes or even 11 and it was done at 10, there's no undoing what's been done. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that in the oven, and we'll see you on the back side.